I recently found out that a lot of people do not know how to code in Bloxd.io. So today I'm going to teach all of you the basics of coding, how to code your own custom weapons, and make even more stuff in this series. And this will be a course, so pay attention, do your homework, and lock in and take some notes because we are going in for the long haul. We're going to learn syntax today. Yeah. So let's go on to our first line of code. So on player join equals to player ID, which is blah blah blah. This is the code. So what does this mean? So on player join essentially means that when a player joins, then it'll get the player ID, the player who joined, and then after that it'll just say hello. So you don't really have to care about this section here. We'll talk about it more later. But essentially when a player joins, it will say hello. And it seems simple enough, right? So I'm just gonna copy and paste in the code. And so it'll say hello. Yay! So you see how our code in here is in these curly brackets really nice? Well, what happens if you put it outside the curly brackets? So essentially it'll still say hello, but if another player joins the server, there's no hello message. And if we go back to our original code where we still had this inside the bracket, it will log two hellos because there's two players inside. It essentially means things inside the bracket here will be called when a player joins, and things outside the bracket will not be called when a player joins, but only runs because like it's just a way to tell you that, oh, all your code have ran. Essentially, that's what happened. We're going to learn about conditionals. So what are conditionals? Essentially, they are if statements. If you know what an if statement is, essentially if statements is if I'm bored, I want to play Bed Wars. Yeah, it's that simple. I just want to play Bed Wars if I'm bored. So we can do the same with our coding. So we can just use this code here. We can check that when a player joins, if the player name is John Mayer, we can say welcome owner. So now this is the part I'm going to talk about more of player ID. So player ID essentially gets which player joins, but it gets it based on a numbering system. So based on that numbering system, API.getEntityName, essentially this gets the name from the ID, which is a number. So it gets the name from a number, and we're just checking if it's John Mayer. And if it does, it says welcome owner. And if we run the code, since I'm John Mayer, it says welcome owner right here. So yes, it's actually really simple to do. So if statements, and not only that, you notice that our if statements are actually in brackets here like this. It's easy to tell where our if statement is. And there's also this equal sign. So what does this mean? Essentially it means that if it's equivalent to John Mayer. As simple as that. So that's how our code runs. So it'll just say welcome owner, and yes. So let's move on a little more. So what if we put something outside the if statement? So let's just put like let's just put another log message here. API.log hello, and we'll see welcome owner and hello. The second hello is because there's another guy in here. We're gonna make cryable rejoin, and it will just say hello. Watch this. Yep, it just says hello. And why is that? Well, it's because it's not in the if statement. Because cryable's name is not John Mayer. Therefore, it didn't say welcome owner. Instead, it says hello. But for us owners, if we left and rejoin, it would say welcome owner and hello at the same time. Alright, here's a practical example to use if statements. So let's look at this code. When a player joins, it will get the entity name, and if it's John Mayer, the owner of the server, it will say the owner has arrived. It will send so much aura, and it also use API.broadcast message. Essentially, it just sends a message to the entire server, and the color of the message will be red. And then when a new player joins, it will just log a new player has joined the lobby. So let's see this in action. So it will say owner has arrived, and it's red color. And it'll say a new player has joined the lobby, and if we run it with cryable again, it will say a new player has joined the lobby. So yeah, we can make a simple system like this. If you want to like show aura when you join, you can just make a message that sends, oh, owner has arrived or something like that. And you can change the message by just changing the text in here. Now you may have noticed, oh, why are there this red things here, and they're in like, oh, I don't know, these apostrophes or semicolons. Shit, I don't know what it called. What is this called? So you might be wondering, why are these things in quotation marks? Well, we're going to learn about types. Types are really fun to learn. So there are strings, integers, and boolean. So strings are essentially like text. So text as in, hello, this is a string. It's text right here. And we can also put a number for the text. We can put an emoji for the text. Let's just put the skull emoji. There's also like we can put exclamation marks and a lot of stuff under strings. Then we have integers. Integers are like your numbers like 41, 23, and these you do not need these semicolon. Well, I don't know what they are called. Oh my days, I'm gonna crash. And you see, these do not need quotation marks, unlike strings. So the denotation between strings and integers are just that they don't have quotation marks. And booleans are very different actually. Booleans are the keywords true and false. Now, I say keywords because if you use these in like variables and other stuff, which I will go on to another time, you can't really use them. And true, essentially, it just returns a value of true or false. That's just a boolean. But we'll see a further example later using a boolean. Alright, so let's go back to the slides. So as you can see here, so we can API log 1 plus 1, and if we just click this, it will say 2. Write the number 2 because 1 plus 1 is 2. But what if we just made this strings all of a sudden? What will it give us back? And you might wonder, what's going to give us back? It's going to give us 11. And 11 with these marks on top. Keyword with these marks on top. Essentially, it doesn't add up to 2 because there are different values. So what this is called is concatenation. So 1 plus 1 is essentially just putting a 1 with another 1 at the back. That's why it's 11. It's as simple as that. So, and it can only work with strings. Essentially, this means I can put words like John, and I can put the word Mayor. If I click it together, it will merge it to John Mayer. Simple as that, right? So what happens if we add a string and an integer? What happens if, oh shit, you can do that, what the hell? So if you add a string and an integer, it will essentially take it as the integer to be a string. So yes, that's like the really neat part about it. So it will auto convert to a string. I really do not suggest doing this because sometimes it can get really confusing. So honestly, I'd rather say you just use bracket, quotation marks, so it's just cleaner for you to understand. Alright, so now we can use this concatenation to adapt to our current code. We can see here that if our player name is John Mayer, we can write the owner has arrived, and then you see we can send a message api.getEntityNamePlayerID if it's not John Mayer. So for every other player, it will like get the entity name of another player, and then it will add on with the string has joined the lobby. And you see there's like a space here, and that's because concatenation doesn't add a space in between, it just merges them together. So if we see this, oh wow, the owner has arrived, John Mayer has joined the lobby. So when Cryable joins, there's a specific message saying, oh, Cryable has joined the lobby. Oh man, I'm sick and tired of seeing my name being sent again, even though it writes the owner has arrived. I don't want to see John Mayer has joined the lobby. What can I do? Well, I can put an else. So what does this mean? Some of you nerds might ask, or people who are actually interested to learn. Well, essentially like take it as a normal life choice. If it's raining, I will get my umbrella. Else, I will grab my cap. As simple as that. So if I do this, it will say the owner has arrived, and it will not say John May has joined the lobby, but it will say Cryable has joined the lobby, since Cryable is inside the lobby and Cryable is not the owner. Now we can further move it on with else if. So what if we want to have multiple if statements where we can put an else if the player name is Cryable. Now let's say it's Cryable, the co-owner has joined the lobby. You can do this, and look, it says the owner has joined the lobby because you see John Mayer, and you also say Cryable, the co-owner has joined the lobby because Cryable's name is in the co-owner section. Yes, we're going to go into our next section, which is on bigger conditionals. So essentially, this little tiny sign means or. So essentially what I'm saying now is if the player who joins is John Mayer or it is Cryable, it will send a message, the owner has arrived. Else, it will say a new player has joined the lobby. So let's try it out. It will say the owner has arrived twice because there are two owners in the server, me and Cryable right here. And if another player joins, it will just say a new player has joined the lobby. So like, just to show for context, let's change the name to Bait. And look, you say a new player has joined the lobby because Cryable's in there. It's quite useful sometimes, especially if you have multiple owners in the server and you want them to like say the owner has arrived. You can just do that. Yeah, but you can do this too. Essentially, you can put an or and you can put the name here. So you can do this, and you can just put more or names to there. Like it's low-key really useful, and you just want to check if this thing is dead. So yeah. So the next thing we're going to learn is about AND statements. So what are AND statements? Well, if we are going to use AND, we need full statements, and especially when we have different conditions. So for our next example, we want to check if the player has a gold helmet in their inventory. So we put an AND. What we did is we check if API has an item gold helmet, and if it's true, it'll say owner has arrived. So if I run this now, it'll just say new player has joined lobby because none of us are owners. But if I get a gold helmet in my inventory, and let's rerun the code, it will say owner has arrived, which is me. And so what's the use of this? Well, it's actually like useful in our future segments where we're making custom items, but it can also be used as a way to validify people who are admins. So maybe you can give your admins like custom items to prove that they are admins in case someone steals their name. API.hasItem returns a boolean. Now, as we learned just now, a boolean returns true or false. That's why here we have the word true. Yeah, that's why. Now some pro coders are gonna yap about saying, oh yeah, I can remove this part because optimize. But honestly, I'm just gonna do it here because organization and to let new coders see it more easily. And finally, we're gonna learn about not equals. Essentially, it's just checking if the inverse is true. So see, when a player joins, if the player's name is not John Mayer, it will kick the player saying the server is currently under maintenance. So if I run this, Cryable will be kicked, and if he tries to join, it will say server's under maintenance. But I can join. You know why? Because I said if the player name is not John Mayer. So if it's not John Mayer, everyone else except John Mayer will be kicked. So I don't really like using nots because it's really confusing and it can mess up like your brain a lot, especially if you're using a lot of nots. So I'm gonna run this code and he's gonna get kicked. And he says kick, server is under maintenance. He tries joining back again. And guess what? He gets kicked. Server's under maintenance. Yeah. And in the next episode we're gonna learn about more on how to make custom weapons. So stay tuned for that one. Homework today is very simple. Read through the expanded Bloxd.io doc and just read about on player damaging other player, and that's all you need to read on. And you also can read like the expanded document a little bit. You don't really have to read the full thing to know, but I think you just look at the section of entities of of entity functions. These can be really useful, and I think I highly suggest you to read this section. We are going to really need that for our next session. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.